welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today I'm on my way home from work on an absolutely cold and miserable day, but I'm going to tell you about a really exciting adventure that we had last Thursday with Peggy. So some of you might remember at the beginning of this season I announced that I had been chosen as a finalist in the Royal Automobile Club Historic Awards, which meant that there was a big awards ceremony down in London for us to go to, and the exciting opportunity to go to the Royal Automobile Club for the first time ever, and being such an exciting and exclusive place might be my only time, hopefully not, but it was something that I was really excited about, and obviously then had to start thinking about what we're going to wear, what we're going to do, how we're going to get down there, and who or what was coming with me. So after some really lovely congratulations and people saying how good it was to see me being recognised for the stuff that I do with the Morris Minor Young Members, the Women Drivers Social Club, and of course this podcast. It was then kind of looking into the nitty-gritty practical aspects of whether or not I was going and how we were going to go. So my partner Jamie didn't have much annual leave left for the year, so we spoke to my dad, and my dad was really excited by the idea of coming along, and so we then had to sort out getting us 2 tickets and had to start thinking about, okay, how are we going to get there. It started at 6:45, but it was expected to finish at something like 1 a.m, and we didn't really want to stay over in London. Trains have all stopped and stuff by then, and so it was my dad or my mum suggested, well, why don't you just drive down there? And I'd never really thought about driving into London because it always sounds so stressful and so much hard work, but we do really live relatively close to London, and so it did seem like the smart option. And obviously between the family we have quite a lot of ULEZ exempt vehicles that we could choose from, and so then it was just congestion charge to worry about, and so it seemed like it was drive down to London. And when we were discussing, okay, which car would be the preference, given that it's all Peggy's fault really, that I've got into all of this, it made probably the most sense that if she was up to it, if everything was okay, we'd take Peggy down. The event was a black tie dinner, and hadn't been to one of those before, so I had to find some appropriate stuff to wear, but I still wanted to feel a little bit like myself, and had this idea to try and make a bit of a tiara or a crown out of some Hot Wheels cars, and kind of make it as glittery, as sparkly as possible to fit with the fanciness of the evening, but also kind of feel a little bit quirky and a bit like myself. So I had this idea, and I'd spoken to a friend of mine about if he'd be able to 3D print me some little cars, because I was a bit worried about the Hot Wheels cars all being a little bit too big. But in the end his 3D printer wasn't having any of it, didn't want to do it, so I then did a last minute dash to the Sainsbury's near me, which I know usually has quite a broad collection of Hot Wheels and things like that, but I really struck gold with the cars that they had in on that day, plus a few others that I had lying about, and some that my parents had as well. I last minute got a very early Christmas present. I think it was one that my dad had picked up to put up for Christmas for me, but I really did need a Morris Minor on the crown of all the cars, and he happened to have one, so I was able to pick that up from him, and I painted them all in a matching pedal to the metal Rimmel London nail polish before covering them with a holographic glittered top coat to make them all sparkly, and then got busy with my hot glue gun on an Alice band to attach them all to it. And I thought it was a bit of fun and a bit of a quirky way to enjoy a special night, but I was actually really thankful on the night for having it, purely because it sparked so many interesting conversations with some of the brilliant people that were there, because people spotted the crown and then kind of had a conversation with me about it. So that was really lovely, and something that I wasn't expecting, but worked out really well for getting to know some people and meet some people. So, outfits all sorted, carriage of choice all sorted. It was time to head down to London, and we set off, I think it must have been about 2:30ish. Made some pretty good time going down the A1 with no issues. Stopped at South Mims, and then from there went on to the Ace Cafe in London. So not only did I do my first ever experience of driving in London, but also drove on the North Circular, which was a pretty scary concept for me, but I'm quite lucky that Mum and Dad used to live in that area of London, so Dad was able to tell me, okay, you need to be in this lane to be able to get off here and get to where you need to be easier. So that dealt with some of the stress for sure, and we got to the Ace Cafe, I think, for just after 4 o'clock-ish, I think. Had a little drink there, and it was then to kind of brave into central London, and it was just such slow traffic. I mean, I know it was rush hour and all of that, but it was really mind-numbingly slow driving for a lot of it, and really not that fun. And Peggy's clutch is probably not that happy about all the crawling and the first gear in and out, but we made it. We drove past Park Lane and Hyde Park, where Winter Wonderland was going on, so that was really cool to see. And just, had all things considered, a really nice drive into London. And we got to Pall Mall, which is where the Royal Automobile Club is, for about 5 to 6, and we drove down the street and then turned round and then came back up, because we'd been told that the parking on the street was free kind of from about 6 or 6:30. So we thought, well, if we can get Peggy parked directly outside, amazing. If we have to go find somewhere else to park, then okay, great. But we'd got a list of places from the very helpful people who were organising it and had emailed me about the whole thing, and said, okay, this is great, we'll try and get there so that we get a car parking space. And honestly, I don't think we could have got more lucky. We ended up that directly outside the Royal Automobile Club is double yellow lines, but we got parked directly in the first car parking spot to the side of it. So I spoke to a few people that during the night that had walked from either the tube station or wherever and had walked past Peggy, so it was really nice to have her directly outside. It was really special because obviously she's the whole reason that I've got into so much of the stuff that I have and become so passionate about it. But also the Morris Minor Owners Club were really kind enough to help support me in purchasing tickets and covering some of the travel costs. So for her to be sat directly outside, get some fantastic photos, and really be repping the Morris Minor on the streets of London that night was really special. So we got parked up, and we were a little bit early, and so we went for a little walk round, and I'd not really been to Pall Mall or anything like that area of London in a very long time, if ever. So it was crazy that literally just beyond Pall Mall was Buckingham Palace and Horse Guards Parade. So we had a little walk around some of that for a bit, and then headed back to the car. I swapped out of my comfortable like flat shoes into my heels, and then we headed inside, and it was so surreal walking into somewhere that you've seen so many pictures of online and seen so many like photos of and other people's visits, to go in for the first time and be like, wow. And you go directly in, and there was the rotunda, and I don't know why, but in my head I thought it was a circle. So for it to be, the first thing I thought was, oh, it's oval. And then the second thing I realised is that they'd swapped the car out that was in the rotunda. So I've been following kind of meticulously the last couple of weeks what cars had been in. Obviously Genevieve and the Spiker from the movie had been in, and then they'd gone to do the London to Brighton and left. And then the very first MG was on display, and so I'd kind of expected that maybe that was there, but they'd actually swapped out the car especially for the awards, and it hadn't posted about it online, so it was us seeing it there for the first time. And it was a 1927 Alvis, and it was absolutely stunning. That was used in the very first Grand Prix that the RAC was involved in, so really special to see that. And you can really get so up close to them when they're just parked there on the iconic carpet. Talking of iconic carpets, next to the Alvis was a little red carpet and a backdrop where you could have your photos taken as a finalist, and so me and Dad got our professional photos done there before we started to walk around and have a nosy at all the cabinets, looking at all of the like photos and all of the art that was everywhere. We spent absolutely ages there, and then we headed upstairs to where there was like the champagne reception, and were stood in there for a bit, chatting to people. Again, people coming up and having conversations with me about the tiara thing, and people being very smart about it and knowing which ones were Hot Wheels and which ones were Corgis and so on. So that was fantastic and really cool. And then you kind of queued up around the upstairs balcony of the rotunda to go into another room where all the dining tables were set up. We were on table 14, and on our table was obviously me and my dad, and then there was two people who were members of the club who would come along, a gentleman who we'd been talking to who was a judge for one of the categories, and then also Tom and his family, Tom being another one of the finalists for the Young Achiever Award, who later went on to win it. So it was really nice to have a chat with them, get to know them and hear about all the fascinating experiences that they've had working on veteran cars, doing the London to Brighton, which is something I'd absolutely love to do one day. And his dad was really fascinated in kind of talking about how he'd come from blacksmithing, and that had been so closely related to his ability to do so much of the work on those veteran cars. So some really lovely conversations over a very lovely dinner, and then it was time for the awards, and we were the second award announced. The first one was the journalism one, and then it was the Young Achiever, and Tom won. But before that they played these really cool video clips of all of us like doing whatever it is that we were nominated for. So there was myself, Tom, who was nominated for his work with restoring veteran cars and selling veteran cars, and then these two lads that were working on a website that does classic valuations and stuff like that. So the little videos are really cool to watch, and they used some clips and stuff of the podcast, which was quite fun. And then Tom went up and collected his prize from Richard Hammond's brother, I believe, who was works for one of the sponsors of that particular award. And then we sat through the rest of the awards. Really special was the fact that Tiggy Atkinson, who is a member of the Women Drivers Social Club, won the Personal Endeavour Award. So well deserved, and really special to both meet her for the first time at the event, but also see her get the awards that she so rightly deserves. Then after the awards, it was time to gradually wrap up in the dining room and head to the long bar, but I'd spotted that on a couple of tables over from us was Richard Porter from Smith & Sniff, and I'd never seen him at an event or anything before, and I really wanted to go and say hello because I really love listening to the podcast. So I went over, asked to say hello and to get a photo, and we ended up having a really interesting chat about some car stuff, but also some of my day job stuff in terms of like criminology and interesting crimes, and also conspiracy theories and stuff like that. And Dad came over after he'd finished chatting to the people that he was chatting to. We carried on talking for a bit, and then eventually were joined by none other than Richard Hammond and Ed China, and we had a really fun conversation about lots of car related stuff, and it was really somewhat surreal that like these people that I'd never had the opportunity to meet before, we were just kind of stood around chatting, and eventually the room started to be dismantled around us, and they were literally taking the stage down and everything. So we decided that we should probably vacate the dining room and head on downstairs. So we headed down to it was the level of the entrance, and then you go down another level of stairs to what's called the Long Bar, which was a big bar that was underground, very dark wood panelling. But on the way down there was just so much lovely art and stuff to take in. You guys know that I'm a big fan of my automotive art now, and I was stopping and reading all of the stuff, taking it all in the bar as well, and taking so many photos. And we had a drink in there, caught up with Tom and his family, who had been for a bit of a walk around some of the other parts of the club, and then kind of did the last little walk round of there before it was getting really close to like midnight. So we went back upstairs and had a nosy at some of the places that were gradually closing up in some of the other rooms, some of the other bars. The Brooklands bar looked so cool. I'm a big Art Deco fan. My lounge is all Art Deco themed, and also Brooklands is one of my favourite like historic race courses, and to have a Brooklands themed bar that was also Art Deco was really cool, and we just poked our head in there and took some photos, and wow, it was so cool. And then headed out, and Dad was like, is there anywhere that you would like to stop off on your way home and get a picture of the car by or anything? And I mean, we were so close to Buckingham Palace, it would have been rude not to. So we went literally down the next street, which was the Mall, drove up the Mall. Dad was driving because I'd driven down, and I wasn't really sure where he was going to stop, but he stopped literally. There was a break in these little barriers that were there, pulled into that, and we were directly outside the front of Buckingham Palace, and the flag was up so King Charles and Camilla were in. So I've got a picture of Peggy parked outside Buckingham Palace, whilst royalty is in residence, which I think is super cool, and not an opportunity that you're going to get very often. But apparently 1 a.m. on a Thursday morning is the ideal time to go and get that if you want it. watch the Mall be flooded by Morris miners desperately trying to get photos outside Buckingham Palace now. But it was a fantastic thing to get. And then we drove through London, and it was so calm and so empty compared to how I'd driven through it on the way there. And then we drove up the A1, and again we were basically the only car, and it reminded me of when I'd come down the other side of the A1 from Leeds when I'd been up to the Motorists for their event. And again, it must have been about 1 a.m. in the morning coming down the A1, and it was just so empty and so calm, and a really interesting experience. But yeah, so that was Peggy, mine and my dad's experience of going to London, going to the Royal Automobile Club for the first time, and the awards night. It was a truly amazing experience. I don't think I've stopped smiling when I've been telling people about it, and just so nice that Peggy behaved herself and got us there, that she was parked directly outside, and that she felt really part of the experience with me, because it was really nice when I was signing in and stuff that some of the people that were working the event were like, oh, did Peggy get parked okay? Did you bring Peggy? And so yeah, it was really nice that she was just outside, and we got obviously pictures of her outside the Royal Automobile Club as well. And yeah, just a truly surreal but brilliant night was definitely had. And now to kind of go back to reality, obviously back at work and stuff today, and get on with carrying on, making sure that the things that I am so passionate about keep improving and working forward, because that was the really special part, is that in the little video clip that they played of what I do, all of the three things that I'm so passionate about, getting the experience of driving a classic car out there, supporting young owners and supporting women owners, were all highlighted. And I think in a room that was and still is a very male dominated space, to hear, and also an older male dominated space, to hear those things being kind of appreciated was really special. So if you've got any questions about the experience, I will happily answer them. So if you're watching on YouTube, pop those down in the comments. If not, pop it on the comments on the social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram and everything. But in the meantime, thank you ever so much for listening. Drive safely and happy motoring.
Rising stars, aged between 18 and 30, who are going above and beyond and building their future in Britain's historic motoring world. In this vibrant industry, it's vital that future generations who are making an exceptional contribution within their organisation are recognised. And I'd like to invite Nick Hammond, Chief of Staff, 762 RBC Bruin Dolphin, to the stage to present the awards.
Ep6 works relentlessly on several fronts to foster inclusivity in the classic car scene. Podcasting from the driving seat of Peggy, her trusty Morris Minor, she shares the highs and lows of classic car ownership and maintenance, making it ultra real by commuting daily in Peggy, with all the patient fortitude that entails. She also runs the Young Members section of the Morris Minor Owners Club, which led to her founding the Woman Drivers Social Club in her quest to break down inequalities and